Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back, everybody. Newsflash, life is not perfect.
No.
Got to realize that. Although many of us would like it to be, or we try to make it as perfect as possible, and therein lies the mistake that we're making, because you're giving up on the peace, the inner peace within you, potentially bringing on health challenges and so much more. We're going to talk about this peace thing, peace and perfection. What is the connection? She is somebody that practices the pause. We talked about that last time we got together, and she has a message for all of us in terms of life, in terms of stopping, listening, realizing what's going on, lifting ourselves up. She's back with us. Jessica Niss is on the program. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good, Steve. How are you?
Very well. Before we begin, I want to make sure I say it right. Your practice, your company is called Selah. Am I saying that right?
Yes. Selah.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Selah, which means
Pause. And there's other meanings as well, but in respects to the way that it's used in musical, or if you're in Psalms of the Bible, there is Selah is kind of that pause, that reflection, that stop, and let's reflect on what we just said and moving forward. So it's very telling of what has brought me here today. Practicing a pause is my message when I speak to the Marine community, to students. It is an important reminder for me every day to stop and pause.
and this all connected. You shared with us your journey and your family's journey
Mhm.
and your children,
Mhm.
who some sadly you've lost.
I have. My oldest, Eric John, went into the Marines in 2019, and he was, in every sense, striving for the next goal. So his goal going in was he wanted to work with dogs. He wanted to be a canine handler. And knowing that, instead of going in as an officer, which he had earned by going to college, he went in as an enlisted Marine. So he is a little older than the other guys going in. Most of the other recruits that he was in with were just out of high school, 18 years old. Eric John had a little bit more life underneath his belt. And so he was revered as a leader all throughout, basic training down in San Diego. In fact, I went down to graduation day, and so many came up to me and said, "Ma'am, we couldn't have made it through here without your son. He was such a voice of encouragement. He was there for us. He would fall back in a run to encourage the people from behind. So he was just always that oldest brother, right? I mean, that was his role his whole life. And so that's the role that he took. And one of the things that he earned, throughout his time there was, these bonded relationships. And when we go through life and we let someone else know that they matter,
Mm.
I see you struggling. I may not be able to take all of it away from you, but I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. That is one thing that Eric John did, was he saw others, he met them where they were at, and he encouraged them to keep going. And one of the things, going forward, he earned himself a right to go to canine school. And there he got, so many goals of his own that were met. Things were not perfect along the way, but he kept going. And that's one of the things that we can get hung up on is, if we are set on perfection only will miss some of the other gifts that are coming along. Because if it's not perfect and we stop, well, we're not going to get to the next step. So I saw that with him a lot. I learned a lot from him is what I did. So yeah.
I want to dig into the perfectionism train that many of
Yeah.
us ride, us included, in a moment. You, he was in Japan, correct?
Yes, from K-9 school, he graduated from there, and because he had done so well there, um, they gave him, the option, where do you want to go? His first choice was Okinawa, Japan. He had been able to be in Japan a few years before that in college. Being the scholastic mind that he was, he wanted to do something a little different, and so he took a class abroad. He went into Japan and he took an art class of all things. He was uh, looking to broaden the other parts of himself. And so he took an art class in Japan. And when he came back, that was in 2017. When he came back, he said, "Mom," he said, I am, I am just in awe of the peace over there. There is there is so many people that work hard. They do their job very hard, and honor is a huge thing in their life. But they have this ownership, this their job reflects them. And so there's this fine balance. And he said, everybody looks out for one another. Small children were riding a bus, 3, 4, 5 years old, with no one with them, because the community takes care of them, make sure that they get from here to there. And he was just in awe of this culture. And so he did say at that point when he was in college, I want to go back one day. So here we are a couple years later. He has this opportunity to pick where he wants to go, and he chooses Okinawa, Japan. It's a place that he is very excited about going back to. And so he got to Japan and found himself. It's the midst of COVID. Things looked a little different. He was working with his dog, Neri. Um, and at one point during the few months that he was first initially there, they told him that there was no longer a position for him being a canine handler. So his whole goal, his whole, mindset was, I want to be a canine handler. He achieved it, but now they're going to switch gears. Now we need you to go down to Kinzer, which is one of the posts in Okinawa, to be MP, Marine Police Officer, which he's trained to be. He had to train for that before he was a canine handler. And once he got there, he was recognized as a leader right away.
Wow.
They gave him the billet of watch commander. He had, this responsibility to take care of people. And so he, transitioned into that job, that day-to-day job. He was disappointed. I'll say that. He really wanted to have Neri with him. He had set that goal, he achieved the goal, and now for it to look different, it was a couple of conversations over the phone with me, a couple of FaceTimes, and he embraced where he was at and settled in. And I will say this, you know, the reason he wanted to go in enlisted to work with dogs is because officers don't work with dogs. So he could have gone in as an officer and just, uh, got a job leading other Marines, but he really wanted to work with dogs. And
Hmm.
so gets there and finds himself without that job, finds himself now down as watch commander. And so he's already finding himself in a leadership position. So I'm just, the reason I'm reiterating this is I kept reminding him, Eric John, you are where God has you. Okay. We have our thoughts in mind of where we think we need to go. But when we are
Mm.
moving towards our purpose, sometimes it looks differently than what we had, thought for ourselves. So he
Well,
was
it's
in,
always been said, and you can label it however you want,
yeah,
that the universe knows what's best for you. We may
yeah,
think we know, but we
yes,
we don't know. The universe knows, if you want to call the universe God, uh,
yes,
whatever. And I have a friend, Trish. She's a very spiritual. I am
yes,
very much to a point, but every time this conversation comes up, she's like, "Well, who do you think created the universe?" And it's like, "Okay,
I
I
know.
get you. I
Good
got it."
conversation. It's a good conversation. Yeah.
But when you know, I feel, and
Oh, yeah.
looking at his journey, it was clear that this feels right
Yes.
in aligns with his purpose of
Yes.
working with canines, and
Yes.
that's probably why he wound up doing it at that time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Uh,
So, so then he got to Okinawa and fell in line and led Marines. He found himself in a position to help another Marine. He was responded to an emergency call um, and performed life-saving measures. Um, uh, he was given the Naval Achievement Award for his efforts in um, trying to save this Marine. He was given MP of the Quarter, that's Marine Police of the Quarter, which his picture still is on that wall. That was in, 2021. Um, that was all in April of 2021. And it was announced then that he had um, was now going to have the opportunity to go to officer training school. The higher echelon of the Marine Corps recognized we we see what he does with these Marines. He was used kind of like a telescope. He could see them, he saw what mattered, he was on the inside, he knew how to get them to believe in themselves and to believe in what was asked of them. And so he was asked if he would like to go to OCS, which is officer training. Um, and so that was going to be coming up in August. He'd been working hard. His Marines on a June first weekend in June, on June 4th, some of his other Marines asked if he wanted to go and do some snorkeling in the water. That was one of Eric John's biggest passions, was the water. He'd been in water his whole life. He had taken all the classes to be safe, all the things that you do to prepare so that you have the right tools in your tool belt. And so he went in the water on June 4th. He and his friends, they had a great time. They decided they were going to do the same thing the next day. They had told me that they hadn't seen Eric John so giddy in so long because he'd been working so hard, to be able to break loose and do something that you love, something that feeds you, you're pouring in, but what's pouring into you, right? And so on June 5th, he went in the water, he and several other Marines, and there was 7 altogether. 3 of them had gotten out of the water. They were starting to dry off because they noticed that the weather was changing a little bit. And within seconds, the weather changed horribly. So Eric John was in the water with 3 other Marines, and they were caught in a rip current. And the other 3 never stopped hearing his voice. He was a voice of encouragement to the very end. They got out, he did not. And so he went out of this world the same way he came in, with this big, loud, boisterous voice saying, I've got something to say. And his whole life, he made sure that what he was saying, though, was also letting you know that I see you and you matter. And that's one of the catalysts to what I'm doing now I was asked after he was found, which he was lost for 4 days in that ocean, for 4 days. And so every day I just kept talking to him. I know he was 6,000 miles away, but I know that my voice, even though maybe he couldn't hear it, I was putting it out there. And on day 4, um, I was getting reports every day, and this last report that I had gotten basically looked like the first, and it made me feel like they were giving up. And not because they wanted to give up, but at some point you give up, and resign to saying, well, this is what reality is. And so I read that report, and it looked just like the first day's report, basically. And so I felt like I needed to up my game a little bit. I had been praying, I had been doing all the things. So I went outside and I said, God, I said, you know every blade of this grass, and you know every leaf of these trees. So I know you know where Eric is. So just hold him until he's found. And as God would have it, he was found. He was found by a local local diver, is what the report said. And he was able to come home. And that was such a gift, because my bags were packed, Steve. I was trying to get past all the COVID barriers, trying to get over there, because if nothing else, I was going to look for him. That's a mom's whole mission, what from the time they find out that they're pregnant, is protecting their baby. So if nothing else, I'm going to go look for him, and I'm going to bring him home. I wasn't coming home until he was found. And I know that may sound a little, extensive, but that was where my heart was. So when you look at Eric John's, life, and you look at the message that he was giving others, in that a whole bond was created between the Marine Corps and I. It was so many people reaching out, so many people just stating over and over again how he made them feel like they mattered. And that, I think, is the core of what all of us need and want, is that we matter. So,
Your website is a beautiful tribute, and there's even video of him
yes,
free diving
yes,
in Japan, I do believe.
it is in
Uh,
Japan. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. All that coral around him. Yeah,
yeah. I had no idea it was that beautiful in the water in Japan. Really
yeah,
didn't.
yeah.
And side note, a couple of years ago, my son, who just turned 19, wanted to go to Japan. He just loved the culture, and
Yes,
we didn't go. There was a couple of reasons why it just didn't work out, but
yeah,
that's now going back on my bucket list.
good.
Um, we talk about perfection and
Yes,
how it doesn't support us.
no,
Did you find that you were on that perfection train and hopped off the train
yes,
in the last few years?
I did. I did.
Same.
So going along, raising young kids, one of the advice that I had gotten from, someone close to me was, you're a very young mom. You are being, you know, scrutinized, even though you don't know you're being scrutinized. So one thing you can do to help yourself out is always have your house clean, honey, no matter, if they show up unexpected or not. And so I was seriously, it was like trying to shovel during a snowstorm. I was consistently, you know, just picking up, picking up, picking up. You've got all these children taking a toy out, you're picking it up, they drink a cup, you wash it. And I was not enjoying life one bit. I was missing moments.
I got you on that. I totally know what you're
Yes,
saying. And
yes,
I'll bet you, we're almost out of time, but I bet you if we look back at our childhood, there are reasons why we were perfectionists, whether
yes,
you feel like you're not good enough, you want to give
right,
more, all
right.
of that. But I did the same thing. There were times where my kids would be young and they'd run down the hallway and I'm like, don't scuff off the wall. Stop. Stop.
Right.
What are you doing? And why was I doing that? I
I,
think back, it's like, if I got to paint the wall, I got to make the time, I'm working three
yes.
jobs. La, 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 la. Now
Yeah.
I look back, blank the walls. I don't really
Right.
who cares?
Who cares? So what I found was, in all the things that I worried about, all the things that, striving for perfection, your kids got to, you know, act a certain way, and you want them to be respectful, and you pour into them all the goodness that you can. But after you've lost a child, you look back, and I am so grateful that I stopped that train of perfection a long time ago, because I was staying then in the moments. And those are the things that I have brought with me. I actually have memory of specific things that if I would have gotten lost in the sauce of perfection, I would be wanting, and there would be that extra layer of grief of wanting more and more. And I still want that more, but I have so much. I have so much that I was able to pay attention to.
You just made something come very clear for me.
Yeah.
And what I wasn't doing up until about 4 years ago ish
Yeah.
wasn't living in the moment. And
Yes.
I met somebody and they showed up because they were supposed to at that very moment.
Yes.
And they said to me, you don't, what's up with you? You don't live in the moment. You think about the past, the future. I had no idea what they were talking about. Took months to start figuring it all out. But now as I look back, as we both let the perfection thing go, if I actually lived in the moment, I wouldn't worry about the perfection.
Yes.
Go with the wall situation. I'm thinking about steps ahead. Well, if kids scuff the wall, I'm going to have to make time to paint the wall. It's never going to look the same. Blah, 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 BS.
Right.
I'm looking toward the future instead of, oh, the kids are running. They have a great time living in the moment.
Right. You nailed it. You
I
nailed
and what I should have done in those situations where perfectionism presents itself,
Yes.
pause, because the pause will give you the realization of what the heck you're thinking.
You were just right inside my next thought. That was so when you pause and you think, what really does matter?
Yeah,
You know, what matters? And so I will um always want to do my best, and I always want others to
sure.
do their best, but perfectionism steals peace. And
Absolutely.
yep,
It 100%. Guess what? I didn't have all that time. Peace.
peace. Right, right. And
But
I have found that that is the the um the catalyst to finding out more of what your purpose is. When you find the peace here, you can find your purpose.
100%. And you
Yeah,
don't know until you know, but when you know, it's game changer.
it is.
Life, it's almost as if the sun came out, the
Yes,
sense of freedom, the
yes,
chains come off and all of that. And
yes.
there's a door right there that leads to my office in this building. There's a
Mhm.
newspaper clipping on the wall of I wanted to be a cartoonist. I also wanted to be on the radio. And local library did a display of my cartoons. And
Right,
right there in that article, as it turns yellow on the wall in the newspaper, local newspaper,
right.
it's my quote at 17, I am a perfectionist. And I look at that, I'm like, oh no.
Oh,
And I was doing it then. Even when I would draw cartoons, it'd be like, I draw something and then crumple the paper,
yes,
throw it back to another one. If
right,
you looked at them, you'd be like, they look exactly the same, Steve. What are you
right,
doing? But
right.
we need to let it go and
We do
start
need to let it go.
start
Yeah,
living. Your
yeah.
website, wonderful, great tribute to your son and all, and your journey. How do we find you?
You can go to www.selahllc.net. That's SELAH LLC.net.
I'm going to remember that word and I'm going to say it to people because they're not going to know what the word means, but it's going to stop them in their tracks when I say,
Yeah.
"Hey, Selah." They'll be like, "What are you
Yes.
talking about?" Pause.
Yes. Exactly.
It's the secret of life. Thank you so much for being here
Very
today.
welcome.
Looking forward next time we get together.
Yes. Sounds good.
We're
You
going to
take
pause. We're going to pause
care. Yes.
until next time.
Sounds good. All
We'll be
right.
right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.